Hey everybody, welcome to another one of Samson's Mailbag Saturdays. We're talking about a lot of stuff today. It's in the title. We are talking about star guards in the making. Is there potential for any of the Raptors guards to kind of hit that upper echelon? We will be discussing that, yes. I will be doing some film. That's exciting. I still have to catch up on some mailbag questions that were asked. I get like 30 questions every week, so I figured I wouldn't ask this time. And also for anybody who was hoping that this Saturday would be you were expecting, because I said so, that this would be the video with Trey and Josh where we're talking about four of Josh's favorite prospects. My fault. Scheduling is tough with three guys. I will sort this out. It was supposed to happen, but mistakes are made on my end. It'll come out soon. We just have to sort it out. It is coming though at some point. I want to start today actually discussing the Scotty Barnes hand thing. And because I think there's a lot of, I don't know, I guess because people tune in to hear what I think about things. So I'll tell you what I think about this. It's an odd situation. Now, Scotty had a great quote about this. Actually, I'll set the scene. Basically, as everybody understands it, Scotty Barnes just put up 5 points in a game, right? He also scored 9 points and 9 points prior to that. He hasn't shot the ball very well this year. And also, fans are using this as justification. Like his hand is tied in. Darko used it as justification. It's hard to shoot with three fingers, yada, 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 all that kind of stuff. So the hand is being juxtaposed against his play as a reasoning for it. The typical reaction to all these things is to ask why he's playing. And then everything comes back into it. So Scotty's quote is the most important here, right? Scotty says, "Why would I not go out there? Nothing's stopping me. I want to play every single game. I love playing basketball. I missed some games last year. I missed some games this year. It's just a blessing to be on that court. Every time I step on the floor, just trying to help the team win." And I do believe that. I really do believe Scotty, he loves the game. He very clearly loves the game. And that's a big motivator for why he's out there. And there's speculation, obviously, that he's trying to hit the 65 game mark so that he's eligible for, be it expectant all NBA votes or all defense votes or whatever. Now, that could be true, but that would be cynical to suggest. And I'm not going to suggest that because I think, even if like logic might point you that way, it could just be Scotty. It's very easily could just be that Scotty wants to play basketball, right? And it doesn't have to be about money. Not to mention, he's not going to get selected for all NBA. That potential extra payout of however many millions and millions of dollars, it's just not coming. So what happened in the media room is that, Darko mentioned this. I believe Aaron Rose asked the follow up, like, why not sit Scotty then if his hand isn't okay? And I asked a follow up later, like asking what the inciting incident was for Scotty's hand, because he sprained his hand in March 2nd, early March. And Darko said this has been going on for a couple months at least. This is something that's been happening over and over. Every time his hand seems to get a little bit better, something happens to tweak it again. Now, that's just the situation. Is that now the Raptors, whether or not Scotty plays, I mean, they have the 7th best odds for the lottery. I'm pretty sure like there's a scenario where the Spurs can catch up to them, but that's probably not going to happen, especially since the Spurs beat the Nuggets with Jokic out. I don't think any of that stuff is going to get affected. Now, if Scotty wants to play and there is no risk of the hand getting worse, then whatever. That's totally fine. You don't have to use it as justification to say if you're a doubter of Scotty, to say all those different things. However, I do say, and it needs to be important, if your star player is quote unquote healthy enough to go out there and play and scores 9 points, 9 points, 5 points, you can't pretend like fans aren't going to notice that, ask for justification for these things, and wonder loudly about it. Of course. Now, this puts other people in a position where it's like, what do we say to that? Do we say we're playing a guy who's hurt? or is hurt in some capacity, but not enough to be out, but can be questionable, can like all the rigmarole, right? Can you do that without making it seem some type of way? Like, why aren't you just resting him? The Raptors have no problem resting other players. Then that also puts in like, well, are other players more willing to rest than Scotty is? Why won't Scotty? Why is Scotty the player who won't rest? Why are these guys willing to rest? Right? It just calls into question a bunch of stuff. And you don't have to go down all those roads. But you can't have it be like, we don't talk about this. It's the end of the season. Nothing matters. And you can't shame fans for being like, why is this guy scoring 5 points? Because you're a fan, you watch the games. If the star player goes 9 points, 9 points, 5 points, and you can't just say like, well, it's the end of the season. They're watching an entertainment product. And again, this is not me blaming Scotty. It's just the juxtaposition of this conversation. It goes against a lot of like I guess it goes against a lot of the spirit of competition if you try and delegitimize the competition level in conversation at every level. So it's just kind of like a whole big mess of stuff, whole big mess. It points towards a couple things, but you can't know for sure those couple things. And there you go. Scotty, if Darko says he's shooting with 3 fingers, he says that the hand needs rest to heal. But Scotty is saying, why wouldn't I play? This can't get worse. And I guess, like health, the management, like everybody knows that hand won't get worse. It's just going to affect his play. Then that's what it is. It's a weird end to the season where the Raptors are not wanting to win, really, where Scotty is out there playing great defense, might I add, struggling immensely on offense, which he has for a lot of the year. But it does follow this thread of like, there's been this thing where like Scotty's dealt with nagging stuff, but anytime you try and levy like criticism towards his game, you refer back to like a 10-game stretch where he was supposedly healthy. And it's been like this moving target of like, what do you say about Scotty? To have it be honest and fair. And typically the answer for most players is if he's out there, he's healthy enough to be lauded, congratulated, and healthy enough to be critiqued. It just is what it is. So my thing is, am I buying into Scotty? Do I think the 9 points, 5 points, the 18 points per game on 40% shooting for a long stretch, does this make me think lower of his game going to the future? No. I think Scotty will still end up being an all-NBA level player. I think he'll be selected to one in the future. Hopefully multiple times. I'm pretty bullish on that. This end to the season doesn't make me think those things. However, for the conversation around this stuff, you can't just like go holier than thou and stiff arm everybody away and be like, oh, you're really buying into this late season thing? He's playing. People watch the game, to talk about the game, Not me, not a media member, but fans. If a fan is like, why did my guy only score 5 points? You can't just be like, they're tanking. Dude, you can't have it both ways to that degree. That's my opinion on the conversation. None of this, I guess the conversation is, I don't think this is like Scotty. I don't think this is Darko. This is just things are intersecting in such a way. Like when Aaron asked the follow-up to Darko and said, if you're willing to rest other guys and if what Scotty needs is rest to fix his hand, why aren't you resting him? And what Darko said was, good point. There's definitely pros and cons, and then went on to talk about getting Scotty games. Scotty wants to play, all this kind of stuff. So that's just, it is what it is. David Leverett says the hand does not explain why the effort level has also gone down too. I think you know, I think Scotty's effort level is not, I don't think it's been bad. I think offensively it's true that he's not extolling as much effort, expending as much effort to try and create. He's definitely, but you could explain that away easily with just like his hand is really hurt. It is really injured. You know what I mean? And he's not as comfortable dribbling right now. He's not as comfortable shooting right now. And there you go. Bob's your uncle. He doesn't want to be as much doing contact, but I've seen a lot of games where he's definitely involved defensively. And he's definitely like using his body, keeping his hand clear and all that kind of stuff. So I know it's subjective. Everyone can view effort a certain way or another, but I do think Scotty is trying. Like he's not playing well offensively, but I think he's trying. Caleb also says the thing with entertainment product is people are entertained by wildly different parts of the product. Some people just want to have an object to throw their rage at. Certainly. It's like conspiracy theorists, right? Conspiracy theories are usually used to be like this thing. It's like it wasn't answered properly, exists in the public consciousness, is like, we don't have answers to this thing, so conspiracy comes about it. But conspiracy theorists are typically people who turn everything in their orbit or what they're near to into conspiracy. They see it everywhere. That's kind of where we're at. Or that's not where we're at. That happens sometimes. And yeah, it's like some people like, and you can see this in the dialogue of the Raptors, some people like the Raptors trying to win. They like watching better basketball. They like doing all this kind of stuff. And some people were very much like celebrating the losses. And they like the team building GMification process of being a fan. That's a real thing. And, you know, it's just those two things definitely run into each other. AI Sem says conspiracy theories were theories until all the documents are declassified. Yeah, dude, that happens sometimes. And yeah, I've listened to the Blowback podcast is fantastic for a lot of the like the 1950s through 1970s American foreign policy, a lot of that stuff. Lee Zimmerman says, what about the league rule that you can't DNP an all-star without a valid reason unless you get fined? Scotty's hand, if they're in the if they're in the press conference saying his hand is bothering him, then obviously there's probably a valid reason. Yeah, Caleb says COINTELPRO Raptors. Yes, that's correct. Raps VE says, I just don't understand why people can't let others enjoy/dislike whatever they enjoy/dislike. I'm going to get into talking about the guards, but I will say insecurity. Usually it's insecurity is like when you don't feel as confident about your stance as you want to, you start fervently attacking others to try and delegitimize them. That's the psychology behind it. 1,000,000%. It's very comfortable to say you see something and be like, this is what I'm seeing, and not to get into too many arguments about it. It's a healthy place to be, especially if you enjoy the whatever you're looking at. All right, guys, let's talk guards. Or and a final thing, I don't think Scotty should get any type of like looking a certain way. I don't think Darko should get any type of looking a certain way. I'm going to assume from my position that Scotty is not at risk of injuring his hand in a way that will make it worse down the road. I'm going to assume that his play is a little bit hampered and give him that buffer. And I'm going to assume that Darko is managing how the organization feels and how Scotty feels and trying to walk that line. And that's just how it is. Come next season, I think everything is going to be just fine. And then we can really complain about the Raptors because they will be expected to win, and we can see if they do or not. Okay. So James Mays says, inform yourself as to where the term conspiracy theory comes from and from whom. Then and only then can you reference it with any sense of rationality. Until then, you are just a go-along Joe. Perhaps I'm a go-along Joe. Perfectly fine with that. So, Jamal Shed, Jacoby Walter, Grady Dick, Emmanuel Quickly. I'm putting RJ in lumping him into like the small wing group for this. And that's where we're at with it. I'm going to be talking about the guards. So the Jamal Shed thing quick is, I'll say very quickly, I don't think Jamal Shed has star potential. I know some people see him as an heir apparent to Kyle Lowry, a spiritual successor, maybe even an aesthetic successor in some sense. I have a friend who was saying the in and out hezzy to get to the right hand is something that is, it's something that Lowry does, and it's something also that Shed does. It's true, although a lot of guards do that move. Jamal Shed has a chance at making an all-rookie team. He really does. Now, do I think he will? Probably not. And I think voters now are less so looking at total statistics, and we'll look a little bit more into rate stats and like minutes played and role and team and all that kind of stuff. But Jamal Shed has a real chance at making an all-rookie team. I'll say that. I've done a lot of analysis on Jamal Shed over the past couple of weeks. You can go through the history of this podcast, the videos on the YouTube channel, and you'll see me talk about Jamal Shed at length. I also wrote a piece about his jumper recently. So if you want the deep dive into Jamal Shed, just go looking on Raptors Republic YouTube page or raptorsrepublic.com. Jacoby Walter is where I want to start. And he's very interesting to talk about because he is doing things a lot differently this season than he did at Baylor. And his strengths have shown up as different places for success than what we saw at Baylor as well. He's struggled at things that I did not expect him to struggle at. One thing Jacoby has not done very well at all is attack, closeouts, maintain advantage, and get past his guy. He gets stuck to defenders, and that's why he's had so much trouble shooting well. Like, he's been a very poor finisher at the rim. Even though he hasn't taken a ton of hard shots, he's shooting a lot off of cuts, for example. He gets stuck in the mid-range a lot, where he's been perfectly fine as a mid-range shooter. And he's definitely come along as a shooter. He does not create on ball very often, although he's doing it a little bit this year. All of this said, he was the 19th pick. Grady was the 13th pick the year prior in what was considered a very strong draft. And Jacoby Walter has come away from his first season, or will be, in a better place than Grady comes away from his. Grady has a little bit more cachet as a prospect than Jacoby does. He had more blow-up performances, and we will get to Grady. I like Grady a lot, to be clear. However, what Jacoby brought to the defensive side of the floor, the way that Jacoby has been getting better and stabilizing his three-point shooting, and the way that Jacoby cuts, all these things make him, I say, almost a shoo-in for a second contract, perhaps a third, so on and so forth, to be like a strong contributor on good teams. He does essential things. That is what Jacoby Walter does. It's very impressive. We can give you guys some of the stats. So, for example, we'll go to offense first, and we'll talk about the offensive side of the floor. So, Jacoby, if you want to know what he shoots on catch and shoot threes, he's shooting 37% on catch and shoot threes this year. He started off in a very, very bad place in catch and shoot threes. In fact, first however many games of the season, he was shooting like 20% on unguarded catch and shoot threes. That has slowly been creeping up. We've all seen it this season, certainly, as it's gotten better. Right now, he has taken 80 unguarded catch and shoot three-point jumpers. He's shooting 40% on those. He's taken 71 guarded three-point shots, and he's made 34% of them. His jump shot mechanics are so easy, so repeatable, that he was a guy that it was easy to believe that he's going to be able to hit those shots. And it did come around. And I think he's going to be a very strong catch and shoot three-point shooter for the bulk of his career, even though it didn't start off well, even though he's only at 35% on the season in totality. I think there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of room for optimism for his jumper. It's very quiet. It's very easy. It's very simple. Now, the dribble jumper is at 24% this year. I'm not as bullish on his pull-up three. I'd love to be proven wrong there. But also, if we're talking about like his pull-up mid-range, he's shooting 40, almost 41%. He's taken 42 mid-range pull-up jumpers this year. He's hit 17 of them. It is something that is an actual part of his repertoire. It's something that I think he's going to build out going forward. He might be a guy who is more of like a hang dribble, hover hand, push dribble, like move in the lane when guys start to respect how he gets a step on a closeout, maybe a guy's hanging on his hip. That's how he gets him to bite, and then he reroutes. That would be like an interesting aspect of what he does. However, the rim stuff hasn't been good. He is very dependent on his jump shot and just being like, do I get to run out in transition? Do I get to walk the baseline like a shadow cat? How am I going to get easy buckets? He doesn't make a whole bunch of hard shots. That's where he and Grady differ. Now, Jacoby, He's killing it on defense. But before we go to the defense, I just pulled it from I pulled it from S's Twitter because he compiled all of Jacoby's buckets last night. But Jacoby obviously scored 22 points last night. And YA says he reminds me of a bigger Etwan Moore. What a pull. When I first started in this industry, Blake was I became friends with Blake, and that's how I lived at his house when I moved to Toronto. But like way back before even 2020, Blake and I used to talk about Etwan Moore. Etwan Moore is such a good pull. He does play like Etwan Moore. The dribble is a little bit less, but he's bigger, and the floater isn't quite there. But Etwan Moore, wow, that's a great pull. I do see similarities there. That's good. I like that a lot, YA. Okay, but I have video for Jacoby that I want to talk about or go through. Let's see. What are we doing here? Share screen. All right, let's see. Oh, this damn thing. Let's see. It's not working. One sec. Okay, I have to get this going right. But yeah, Etwan Moore is such a good reference point. Etwan Moore is very fun. Okay, let's see. It's not letting me scroll through my tabs. What the hell is this? I have no idea what's going on here. I might have to revisit this later. Yeah, it's not letting me. Wait. Does this work? Damn. Okay, I have to revisit this. Click the screen icon in your address bar to allow access, then reload the page. I don't want to reload the page. I'm doing a live. Okay, anyway, we'll talk about Jacoby's defense first then. Sorry, everybody. This is the first time it's responding like this. So Jacoby's defense is obviously he has to hit his threes. He has to make shots when he's open. That is important for anybody. And Jacoby is already bridging that gap to allow his defense to get onto the floor in the future, especially if we're talking about, Emmanuel Quickly hasn't been super impressive defensively. Grady has been very bad defensively and got worse as the year went on, which was really tough to see. And Jacoby is really strong guarding in isolation. He's been really strong guarding closeouts. Now, some of this could be just 3-point volume is helping him out a lot. Like Jacoby on his when he's guarding 3-point shots, guys are shooting less than 30% against him. Statistically, people don't believe that you're able to inform percentage to that degree. Like they don't think anybody's closeouts are so good. So you would call this on 145 attempts. You would say this is just a bit of random positive luck for Jacoby. Next year, you shouldn't expect people to shoot 30% against his closeouts, for example. But they do. That puts him in a really strong spot as far as guarding closeouts. Now, when people attack closeouts, they definitely shoot much better against them. So, for example, in play types, I've talked about this with Trey before and, kind of ad nauseum, but the play type that Jacoby has guarded the most this year is pick and roll ball handlers, and he's guarding the ball handler. He is ranked as one of the worst players in all of the NBA at guarding the pick and roll ball handler, the 3rd percentile. He used to be the 1st percentile. On 3-point shots, guys are shooting 41% against him. That will come down in the future. However, the big thing here is that guys are shooting 61% against Jacoby in 2-point land. And it's because they're getting to the rim a lot. And they're and this isn't the roll man. This is Jacoby's man turning the corner on a screen. And Jacoby hasn't played that much switch scheme. He does typically try to climb over top. He is put in as a defender, hey, go get the man on ball, lock and trail, or slide with him over the top of the screen if you can. Jacoby has to work definitely on getting to a stronger spot to guard screens with, because he gets caught on a lot of them. And he's slighter, so he can't power through the edge of a screen like a guy like Lou Dort could, for example. But Jacoby in spot-up situations is graded in the 86th percentile as excellent. In isolation, he's graded as 83rd percentile. Very good. And he is very good at jumping up to guys and staying on them. There's only been 4 threes this whole season attempted on Jacoby Walter in isolation. And it's because he doesn't allow players a lot of space. He plays up on them. And as far as 2-point percentage in isolation, 34% people are shooting against him. He's done a tremendous job of closing off space and making sure that guys have to take a really, really difficult route to wherever they want to go on the floor. If you swing past him with a crossover, he can usually jump back into the play and make you double back. He'll make you go side to side. You don't get almost ever a straight line drive when Jacoby Walter is guarding you. That is really, really, really important. He is so good at that. Now, the softer skills of screen navigation are currently escaping him. That's true. However, when it's just him, mano a mano, versus another guy, he does a tremendous job. He really does a great job. And guarding his spot up situations as a guy who can stop or even like, I guess, make sure that a guy doesn't get a 3-up. That's really good. And then slide with him and make sure the play goes on without requiring a backline rotation. That's really important. This is the crux of a lot of very strong defenses. Have guys who can play this way. And Jacoby Walter certainly can. And there's no reason why this stuff can't get better going into the future. This makes him potentially a bit of a linchpin for the Raptors going forward. Grady represents, and we'll get to Grady later, but Grady represents significant upside offensively. And Grady represents somebody who will make other players' jobs so much easier on offense if it all comes to fruition. But Jacoby, as it currently stands, it's very, very easy to see that he's going to provide a certain floor that can fit in a million different lineups and that can provide so much. And that's huge. Now, the star aspect of Jacoby, is there stardom here? What does that look like? Stardom is tough to see. Now, of course, I'm happy to be wrong about this. I'd love to eat humble pie, but Jacoby, he doesn't have a very manipulative dribble. Of course, this stuff can get better, and he's not able to blow by anybody with a static dribble or even a triple threat, really. The only thing that's been able to get him past guys this season is a pump fake when they have a hard closeout on him, when an advantage has been created by someone else. Jacoby hasn't been able to get guys wide and get past their hips. He hasn't been able to attack the top foot or anything like that. He's definitely, guys get to play with him in front of them. And that is not typically telling of a guy who's going to have a big creation bump or be a star in the future. However, he's 19 or just like early 20s, right? Or early 20. And this kind of stuff definitely can get better. He can shoot off the bounce. He does have touch now, and he's not afraid of contact either. But it's, YA says an elite role player would be amazing value at 19. It certainly would. He certainly would. Matt, this is a great comment. I see it there. We have numbers for this stuff, whether you subscribe to them or not. We'll get to that about Grady. But yeah, I've looked at a lot of this stuff before. It's interesting. Grady, the difficult shots, easy shots, all that kind of stuff. So as far as Jacoby, the extra creation bump, I'm not really seeing it right now, and I'd be surprised if it came. However, the stuff he's been able to do as a floor of his game has been tremendously impressive. And it makes me extremely optimistic for him going forward. So much so that now that he's had a better rookie season than Grady did, it's tough to see Jacoby as a more explosive, better offensive player than Grady. Like, it's really tough to see that. And Grady could be in the future so good offensively that he can justify being a negative defender. That happens in the NBA all the time. However, Grady has not been so crazy offensively that you can disregard the defense. And the defense got to a point where it was like, wow, this is really hamstringing actions defensively. Jacoby is not hamstringing those actions. And Jacoby needs less help, because if you go into the stats, like, Grady's defensive stats are not as bad as you'd think, but it's because the team defense, he played a lot of time with the starters, helps him out. They rotate over more. They help him in the gaps more often. They switch out and protect him more often. And he's still coming around at like below average in a lot of play types, right? He's getting a lot of help. Jacoby does not get that same level of help. So the raw statistics from like synergy and stuff like that, they're good. And it's certainly good to point you towards something. But the contextual stuff, like how much help a guy gets defensively, Jacoby and Grady are very far apart on that end. And they're far apart offensively, I think, right now. But Grady's older. He's had 2 years. He got to have a full season, come back and attempt to like pop off. He did pop off, but I think they're farther apart defensively right now than they are offensively. And Jacoby's the younger prospect. And while Grady does some things that are extremely hard to do, Jacoby, that defense, that really matters. And especially if this team is going to be built around Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram, a quality role player who defends his position in the backcourt, that's going to be big. Jacoby's path to mattering on this team is quite clear. Do I see star upside there? Not really, but I'd love to be wrong about that. Now, Grady Dick. Caleb says, what's the value of a Grady that pops off for 40 games like he did for those 3 weeks? I mean, immense. He changes everything offensively. Like the peripheral stuff of having Grady on the floor on offense, everyone gets easier shots. Like Lewis, and we'll talk about Quickly at the back end of this, but Lewis wrote this great piece about Quickly today. It's on RaptorsRepublic.com right now, where the correlation between Quickly being on the floor for the Raptors, where ostensibly he has a ton of the ball, is that they shoot less threes and they shoot way less shots at the rim. And go read the piece. It's very wonderfully done. But how many assists has Emmanuel Quickly after a paint touch? How many layups or dunks has he created this season after a paint touch? 5. Emmanuel Quickly does not create layups or dunks for his teammates. That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. Now, Grady, the team will shoot at the rim more often. And that's because he's not on ball, but his gravity, and he moves so much. He moves the defense constantly. What Quickly doesn't do is when he's on ball, he doesn't collapse the defense inwards or create layups and dunks for others. And he also doesn't move much off the ball. He has skill sets that are extremely important that can be utilized and wielded to create big, massive outcomes for his teammates. He's just not yet learned to do that. The interesting thing about Grady is that he's still developing skill sets, trying to make them elite, but his mentality and his motion as an offensive player is already there. He runs a marathon every game, moving and changing the defense, and the defense does respond to him. He has a huge impact on how the offense operates and the ease of which his other players get to step into the lane, take open threes, get layups, that kind of stuff, without even touching the ball. And that matters a lot for the higher end teams that are constantly, you have a lot of good players on the team, only certain guys get to touch the ball a lot, who really helps ease things going forward. Now, all of that said, Grady, God, he needs to be so much better on defense. And so let's see. Yeah, Matt says Jacoby also missed training camp with shoulder injury. Imagine getting flag or Malwatch salivating. Yeah, Jacoby, he battled a couple things this year. Like Jacoby's rookie year, I'm really happy with. I think he's done a tremendous job. Caleb says, yes, the secret terrible statistic. So Matt said, I have not seen the consistent shooting from Grady. Folks keep saying he takes difficult shots, but he doesn't make open shots. So this is correct. I do think Grady's shooting has been fairly up and down, right? I'm very pro Grady. I liked him when he got drafted. I've been advocating for his play since he got drafted, like cards on the table. But the shooting has been inconsistent. And myself and Josh did a video in his rookie year breaking down his jumper mechanics and talked about why it's going to be inconsistent going into the future, but also why it's more friendly towards difficult shooting. Now we can get into, like, for example, Jacoby is a guy who this year he took more unguarded threes than he did guarded, right? Like that's just, that is what it is. That's what we've seen. And that is also true for Grady. Although the disparity for Grady is Grady takes almost as many guarded catch and shoot 3-point shots as he does unguarded. And it's because Grady takes those more difficult shots. Grady is willing to take shots that aren't as easy. And that's really, really meaningful. So as far, what the hell? I think I don't know, the stats on Synergy are bugging out right now. I don't really know exactly what's happening here. Sorry, I'm just reloading it because these stats are different than what I saw today. Weird. Oh, Jesus. Okay, I was sorry. I was looking at the defensive profile. Yes. Okay. No. Okay. Yes, this is exactly what I thought. Sorry. Great. And this is what I looked at earlier today. Grady takes more guarded. This is why I was confused. Grady takes more guarded 3-point catch and shoot shots than anybody else on the roster. He takes them more than Emmanuel Quickly. He takes more guarded shots than he does unguarded. That is not common for players in the NBA, especially catch and shoot. Grady is taking very difficult shots. On those guarded threes, he's shooting 31%. 31% is not Hall of Fame. It's not good. 31% is passable on tough guarded shots because sometimes you do need to take difficult shots during an offensive possession, and taking difficult shots can alleviate the pressure applied to your teammates. When Grady is taking unguarded threes, of which this year he's taken 111, and this is to the, like, Matt, you can subscribe to this or not. It's up to Synergy how they categorize it. But on unguarded 3-point shots, Grady's shooting 46%. 46. And I do agree, full stop, that Grady's his consistency as a shooter has not been exactly where anybody would want it to be. But when Grady gets time to set his feet and has an easy look, in my estimation, he's a very strong shooter. Shoots 38% from catch and shoot threes overall, but he takes way more guarded, difficult catch and shoot threes than he does guarded or unguarded. And as far as like his spot up threes this year, he's shooting 42%. Off screens, he's shooting 32%. Off handoffs, he's shooting 25%. And especially his off the dribble stuff, Grady has not been good. He's shooting, I believe, 24% on 78 off the bounce threes this year. So there is, like, he's taking difficult shots and he's making some of them, but not a whole bunch of them, right? We want him to be better at these difficult shots because he was advertised as a very, very strong shooter coming out of college. I said it myself, although I liked his overall offensive game a little bit more than just strictly the shooting. The thing is, there are guys who shoot better off of screens. Quite a few. There are guys who shoot better off of handoffs. Quite a few. Grady has been more of a holistic, all over the place, impressive offensive player than he has strictly just a shooter. It was why I made the video essay, halfway through the year, that Grady had been the best driver points per possession from his draft class. And it's because Grady, we talked about Jacoby Walter, and like, a star is someone who gets into the paint, and a star is a guy who gets past his defender. And Grady actually does not have a bad blow by percentage. He blows by people out of the triple threat. And he's a great triple threat player. He has a stutter rip, he has the rocker step, he has the straight rip, and guys really sit on his jumper. He can get past them. He's also very tenacious attacking the rim, even though he's not shot a good percent, but he gets fouled a lot and he shoots like 86, 87% at the free throw line. This kind of stuff helps pad out Grady's stats. It's why he can be around league average despite shooting like 40% from the field and 35% from three. So Pedro Toad here says Grady certainly demands the gravity/attention because of his reputation, but the percentages have just not caught up to that reputation. Absolutely correct. If Grady ever was like a guy who shoots 36, 37% on those guarded threes, and you see the off-screen handoffs, those types of threes start creeping up north of 30%, the tough threes, then you get to start talking about, like, not star outcome probably. The defense would have to be at least like passable, but you really start talking about like a tremendously important offensive player. Grady also has, I think, really strong touch, and I think that will come around at the rim into the future. If I had to guess, it's not guaranteed, but putting on the scouting hat here, that's my estimation. There's also, like, when S was on the podcast and Raptors Report asked how many players have started with like 35% through their first 2 seasons in the NBA and then went on to become really great shooters. The list is actually really long. A lot of guys, they don't do a tremendous job of, responding to the physicality early on. Darius Garland is a really great example of this. Darius Garland First couple years really struggled with physicality, and he eventually, there was so much in his game that was so explosive and had so much touch and so much feel for the game that he just wasn't able to put it on the floor just yet. There was a lot of stuff that was waiting to pop off, and then once he got better with that physicality, then it did. ASM says, I think part of Dick's wall right now is physicality. Yes, he's using a lot of energy fighting and chasing, which affects your shot because you have no legs. Yes, Grady has to claw and fight for everything he gets on the floor. And which is why it was easier for him at the start of the year before he lost some of the weight he put on. The hope is that Grady comes into camp next year weighing, a decent amount more and carrying it through his upper body. That will help on both sides of the floor. But the pitch for Grady as a star is that, when Darko at the start of this season said that Grady has a lot more potential as a playmaker than people think. I agree with that from like the scouting perspective. He clearly does know how to make a read. He is pretty good with the ball in his hands. He can make a lot of different types of passes. It's just like, is he so consumed with just being able to like take the difficult shots and use his shot diet right now that he's not looking to play make a lot? I think there's potential for Grady to be that like impressive playmaker, tertiary playmaker, a guy who could be like 4 assists per game on a team that moves the ball a lot. I think that's there. However, that hasn't popped off yet. So we're waiting on a lot. Like that was the cool thing about Jacoby is Jacoby didn't make you wait on a bunch of stuff. Like Jacoby brought a lot of stuff at the NBA level. And Grady is showing far more than Jacoby, even in their rookie years. Jacoby had a better rookie year, but Grady showed far more offensively than Jacoby did in his rookie year. However, it's that consistency. Grady is a guy who shows star or like all-star guard/wing potential because of how much stuff he can do offensively, the things he tries offensively. He's audacious. He gets to the rim. He gets to the free throw line. He hits mid-range jumpers. He hits from 3. You're just like, it's year 2. You need all of that stuff to ratchet up in efficiency. And then there's the whole other side of the floor. And Jacoby has not shown a bunch offensively in year 1, but he's been quietly good, quietly helpful. And on defense, there's a lot of utility there. That is like, that's something that's really important. Lee Zimmerman says, how about BI's effect on players like Grady Dick? Clearly, he'll have way more open 3 looks. No, less need to take difficult shots. Yes, I'm working on a big piece right now about the Raptors shot diet and how internal improvement and Brandon Ingram, of course, maybe most of all, can help that going forward. And Brandon, I guess I'll open up my piece and go to the stats because I have them written somewhere. Great question, Lee, by the way. So yeah, how the Raptors can make shots when it matters. Look for that piece. Maybe Monday it'll come out. So the Brandon Ingram stats, because the Raptors, again, they're the worst on-ball team in the NBA. Like nobody on the team creates good looks on the ball, and they run a lot of off-ball actions because of these limitations. They take a lot of, per location important shots. They just don't make them. So the big thing is, in Ingram's last full season, where he played 64 games with the Pelicans were the 4th best team in the NBA when it came to 3-point percentage. As a team, they shot 45% from downtown out of Ingram's isolations and 39% from downtown out of his pick and rolls. So they shot 116 of 288 shots Ingram created, 40%. So that isn't like necessarily a home run stat. In the same way, you can't guarantee that a closeout from a certain player will lead to a better shot. Just because Ingram passes the ball, that doesn't mean it guarantees a better shot. Like, he does collapse the defense a little more, but those types of stats are really finicky, and you get into some of the like, we're just calculating. And it also runs into the fact that like when Ingram was on the floor for the Pelicans in his last 2 full seasons with them, the Pelicans took less 3-point shots. So it's that Ingram, I wouldn't say like he harms necessary. I wouldn't say like he doesn't harm 3-point shooting at all. He helps it when he is the person who creates the shot. However, Ingram, when he's kind of sitting still, not using his spacing as an off-ball player and all of that kind of stuff, then you see where the Raptors want to change some of his offensive tendencies. Pedro Toad says, the Pels are cursed, so hopefully he's healthy with the Raps. I mean, really? Yeah, I really do hope that Ingram does, stays healthy. I mean, I hope every player stays healthy. The thing, yeah, Ingram, he can create looks, and he should create easier offensive looks for everybody on the floor. That just has to be the case. If he doesn't, yeah, everyone's in trouble because Scotty needs easier looks, RJ needs easier looks, Quickly needs easier looks, Grady needs easier looks. Guys like Jacoby and Ochai have gotten easy looks because they've not been guarded super close. But there are guys who are guarded close on this Raptors team who have not developed enough of their own stuff to consistently get easy shots, and they've struggled up against it this year. And that's why the Raptors' on-ball points per possession is the worst in the NBA. Brandon Ingram, not just by himself, but how he affects the hierarchy of shots that people take on the roster, could have a seismic effect. That's the hope. And Grady could sit there because let's say if Brandon Ingram is on ball and Scotty Barnes is like cutting into space, then you might feel a little bit stupid about having a guy wrestle with Grady Dick above the 3-point line and also having a big step up to help, support that action too, because then you could create a lot of like 3-on-2 situations with Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes being two of the players, maybe Jakob Poeltl's a third. It's just like that kind of stuff. It could have ripple effects quite wide. And Grady, I assume things will be easier next year. And hopefully, a little bit of that boxing action, the stiff arm, navigate stuff. That stuff should be easier for him next year. God. Make sure to like the video. Helps the work, helps spread to other people who hopefully will enjoy this too. Caleb reminded me after like an hour and 10 minutes last time to take a drink. I'm going to take a drink. I've been talking for 47 daggum minutes. Woo. All right. Back into it. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened with the screen sharing. I'll have to do it next. Oh, it's working. It's working. Okay. We can share the screen. Okay. We can watch Jacoby score buckets and talk about this stuff. Oh, I wish this had worked. Wait. Let me. Yes, there we go. Okay. Jacoby buckets. Yes. Here we go. We're sharing. Everyone sees this. I know you do. Okay. So this will help illustrate some of what I was talking about. God, I wish I could have done this during the Jacoby part, but this will help illustrate some of what I was talking about with Jacoby just doing great things as a mover. So like this, that, as far as like that shot, as far as a guy who makes a shot, great that he can make that shot. You don't want the whole boat to be built out of those shots, but hell yeah, getting to that spot. Again, he's shooting 41% on his pull-up mid-rangers this year. That's not blowing anybody out of the water, but it's certainly good enough for a rookie who's getting a feel for the game. This next play, I love. Motion from Jacoby Walter. This is a lift, right? Because and Jacoby Walter, for podcast listeners, a lift is when you're coming up the floor to create a different type of spacing. And so these guys in the weak side corner or the weak side, like Asar, I believe that is. It's a little blurry. You can blame Esfandiar Berhane for this. Asar is in a position where he has to help he has to tag the roll man. And so he drifts over, and Jacoby creates a better angle as a three-point shooter by lifting up the floor. This is basic movement in the NBA, and you would think every player does it, but not every player does it. And Jacoby does it, and he hits shots out of it. And that would be categorized as a guarded three, I believe, per synergy. This one, too. Look at this. Motion. Who has to tag? Yes, that's right. Asar has to tag. When Asar has to tag Jacoby wheels around and forms to the ball. These are great off-ball principles that he is doing. This one here, look at that, okay? So this whole time, we've been guarding Jacoby Walter, and now he's in the weak side corner, and we have to make sure he doesn't form up the floor because that's what we think is going to happen. But since it's a pick and roll, right, and now the Pistons, I think they're guarding, and this looks like zone almost. Actually, wait, no, it's not zone. So anyway, Jacoby, it might have been zone, actually. Oh, there you go. So Jacoby is cutting the weak side corner into the middle. And Jacoby does this kind of stuff all the time. He has a great sense of when to cut. This is well-timed because you don't want to start the cut when Jamal is up here. You don't want to start the cut when he's right here. You start it right here. So if Jamal were running, you guys would almost meet each other at the rim. And he just creates that nice little cut right under the basket. Jacoby, that's a bucket. Now, he almost got blocked, but this is a guy who that play was going nowhere if Jacoby didn't cut. As a cutter, you can create positive change. This, come and get out of a handoff, turn the corner, hit the floater. This is a great identification because, as we know, Jacoby has been very poor finishing at the rim this year. You have to know the battles you can win. There's Jalen Duren waiting for him, playing, and he doesn't play Jakob at all. He's like, no, I'm committing hard. If I can't remember who was guarding him, has Jakob, maybe they lose the battle on the glass, but Jacoby pulls up short, shows off the touch, gets the ball to go in. Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Jacoby, pick and roll possession, resets, just takes a three and bombs it. He's not been great on I think he's been like 24% on his pull-up threes this year. It's not been super great. But again, you can see him forming up there. It's about creating angles for the man on ball, helping to support your players who are trying to create things. And there, you know what we talked about earlier? For those who have been on the stream for the whole time, you know, I said guys don't take isolation threes against Jacoby Walter because he doesn't allow them space, which is a really great trait in on-ball defenders. Like Scotty, yes, he's not as quick as Jacoby, so he has to use his length as a buffer, and we want to see Scotty do that. However, Jacoby is more gifted with his quick feet, and he's smaller, he's faster, so he can close off space and make it difficult, and he can also poke somebody. But it also means he's just occupying that space. Stops there. You know, in the future, I'm pretty sure Jacoby is going to be able to bump and get all the way to the rim instead of relying on like a pretty tough floater in transition. But Jacoby does a lot of really important stuff. And like, we love that guy. We love that guy. Matt Utley says, Samson, have you seen the movie Rookie of the Year where a kid breaks his arm and when he heals, he has a slingshot arm that can throw 100 miles per hour? Will Trey gain 8 inches of vert once he's fully healed? Rookie of the Year, is that with Dennis Quaid? I don't think so. Whatever the one with Dennis Quaid was, where he was like, I'm all washed up, and he comes back and he's just a heater. That was the one I watched with my mom all the time. But yeah, I don't think Trey's going to get 8 inches of vert. I hope he does, though, because that would be sick. I'd love to be lobbing him at runs. So, Jacoby, we're seeing a lot of things there. That's one of Jacoby's best offensive games of the year, obviously. Oh, yeah, Cosmo, that's the rookie, yes, with Dennis Quaid. That movie rocks, dude. Anyway, so Jacoby, you can see in that there's like the creation when he creates, he's taking tough shots, very, very tough shots. And when he's moving off ball, he's doing a superb job of supporting his teammates, and he's delivering the punch on those plays by creating open looks for himself, helping out his teammates' primary actions, and just doing off-ball stuff. It's that's funny. It's what we want to see from Jacoby. And I don't want to do like lowlights, but I do think Jacoby typically, you can even see it in that highlight package. Like Jacoby, when he's dribbling, he's taking very difficult shots. Like he's not able to transport himself to easy shots immediately. Now, he's a rookie. This stuff can change, but usually you'd see a little bit more of that in a rookie season. However, people develop their own way. I would love to be wrong about Jacoby, whether they're star upside or not. Someone commented, a couple of weeks ago that they thought Jacoby was similar to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, hell yeah, dude. That's what we're all hoping. That's what we're all hoping for. Now, Grady, here's Cosmo, says, I don't get your mobile optimism. Sorry, Samson. He's just purely a dunker at 6'7" on offense. I just don't think that's practical for winning basketball in this league, let alone this team. I like full stop. I think I've been amenable to, I guess, the let's see, like the criticism of Mobo. I've even tweeted about it, right? Like Mobo, I have a tweet about it somewhere. God, well, he's shot really bad on his layups and he shot really poorly on his push shots, and he's basically has not figured out a way to, convert around the basket that isn't a dunk, and he doesn't dunk enough, as you say here, Cosmo. He just needs to dunk, and he doesn't dunk enough. And I did a long conversation about this on the Raptors rookie report, right? Like maybe like 20 minutes close to on mobile, where I addressed these limitations and said that Mobo is at risk more than any other Raptor rookie of not being able to stick in the league for these reasons. What I think is that Mobo has unique movement patterns the Raptors drafted him to believe in him as a wing, and that's a very tough place to occupy, and maybe a small ball big in some sense. We'll see. He is still a rookie, but the offense has lagged farther behind than I expected. I'll take the ding on that. Well, certainly I will. It's lagged farther behind than I expected, and that's been disappointing. However, he's going to get an opportunity, over the next couple of years to keep working on this. He has improved measurably as a catch and shoot 3-point shooter. He's still not even close to good. He's improved measurably as a free throw shooter. He's still not like good. That kind of stuff, we're waiting on it. But Mobo does have some very strong movements. He's very strong defensively. AI Sem says he's a defensive player of the year, potential as a ceiling. Yeah, I don't know about like that because he probably won't play enough, but he can be like a supremely impactful defender. And if he does develop enough on the wing, he could be like an incredible, and I mean incredible, rebounding defense wing who can give you a little bit of passing and hopefully finishing. But the finishing does have to come around. And Cosmo, as you say, you don't see it. I see the good things in Mobo and hope that he's able to pad out his game around that. However, it's no guarantee, and certainly that's correct. He like Mobo, there's a risk here that he doesn't hang in the NBA. I hope that's not what it is. But yeah, Matt says his defense will keep him in the league. I hope so. But yeah, there's definitely stuff with Mobo. We can do some of the Grady stuff. We'll look at some of the, let's see, I can just go to one of my Grady. Dick has been the best driver. Yeah, so we'll go here. So Grady Dick has been the best driver. What we're seeing here is like, this is just me giving the stats. We'll go to the finesse and savvy part of it. So Grady is a guy who takes very dramatic angles and is willing to get himself into very dangerous positions. And even though he doesn't have the quickest feet, and even though he's not the most impressive athlete, he does have pretty good size at his position. And like he doesn't have bad arms or anything like that. He has a lot of flexibility at the rim for a lot of different types of finishes. And like that's touch. That's a great attack against Lonzo. Lonzo's not the fastest, but he just is able to like this. That's a fine drive. It's not like an indicator of stardom or anything like that, but it's the stutter rip. It's the rocker step, rerouting. He has a lot of creativity, and like these are not indicators of, I guess, stardom. This is just him getting to the mid-range jumper, but the mid-range jumper is important. Oh, this is me pausing it back in the, but the mid-range jumper is really important. But like these types of drives, Jacoby doesn't have these types of drives. And to be fair, this is year 2 for Grady, but Grady does a really fantastic job. Like that's just hitting a 3. And you got to be able to punish this stuff. But he does a fantastic job of just pushing towards the rim. And there's a little bit of mentality that is important for this kind of stuff, is like just that want and hunger for the rim. And Grady, despite all of his limitations, really does want to get to the rim. And that's extremely important for a guy who does not have, a manipulative dribble, has the gravity to create drastic closeouts, and will, for the bulk of his career, have these guys kind of killing themselves to take away space from him. And so he does like a fantastic job of pushing through and testing the boundaries of the defense. And that is something that stars do. Now, again, I'm not giving Grady the future star tag because I just think the defense isn't there. The 3-point shooting hasn't been enough. If his 3-point shooting was truly already elite, I think you could start believing on a lot of this stuff. But he can make plays downhill. He can make reads downhill. He is dangerous, and he works really hard as a driver. And there was the tape in the there was stuff like that on the Kansas tape. And he is a guy who's always been able to bring a lot of like punch and oomph. And I really love that about Grady's game. And in this video essay that I didn't include any of like the fouls that he was getting, because it's like nobody wants to watch a guy get fouled repeatedly. But Grady is a guy who, he does get fouled a lot, and he does make players step out, and he does test players, and it's just it's a big deal. If you got all of this stuff plus a guy who hit more of those guarded threes, plus a guy who put teams like and could, if he could capitalize more often at the rim, he's missed a lot of gimmies. It just can look very, very strong. He's he's a very inventive offensive player. And if the soft skills come around on offense, that he could be extremely impressive. And then defense is a whole other thing. Like just defense is a whole other thing with Grady. It's tough, but yeah, let's see. Scramble says, is Jacoby Walter a third string point guard or a two guard or combo guard? I think I think he's a two guard. It's just like, that's just what it is. Rezrov says, I hope Grady's injury doesn't make him suddenly care about his body. Drives are fearless. He is fearless, man. Grady, it's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite things about Grady is he drives like an insane reason. Pedro Toad says the only reason Samson pretends to like Mobo is in case he turns out good and starts a podcast so he can be the NBA player podcast white co-host. I do need somebody to put me on, man. I think those are very good, like easy paying jobs. You know what I mean? You just sit next to an NBA player. They just ask people like, hey, do you like Toronto? They're like, oh, customs. And then you're like, oh, it's not so bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. Scramble says Jacoby's actually been getting third string point guard minutes though. Yeah, but you got to look at the season, right? Like I tweeted out Jonathan Mobo's the stats like of his finishing and all that kind of stuff. I've seen people compare Jonathan Mobo's the like per game stats to rookie Pascal Siakam, for example, but per game stats from like 10 years ago, the pace of the league, it's much different, right? Like 22 points is like 26 points per game. Like also Pascal Siakam was on an extremely good team where he didn't just get like a million. I know he started his first two games as a Raptor, but it's just like there wasn't as much space for him. And you also had to be better to justify that kind of stuff. It's hard to just go like, it's why I hate the stat head comparisons. It's like this guy has 18 points per game. This guy has 19 points per game. The guy on the left is a huge loser. Why? Because this guy has more like bright yellow boxes. I know not everybody is super into like watching the film and getting into all the contextual stuff, which is, why my type of work is not the most popular in the world, but enough people like that too. And I guess that's the niche I fill. But yeah, it's tough to just compare guys on like stat lines. You gotta talk a lot about it, like that other stuff. But yeah, Jacoby, I know he brings the ball up sometimes, but like considering that we're talking about a team that will have Brandon Ingram, we'll have Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, Jamal Shed, Grady Dick. It's very tough to see Jacoby as a guy who's like bringing the ball up and creating on ball, especially since they want to be good next year. It's like his possessions where he kind of learns to create on ball, they might get cut, and that's just what happens. And that also happens. It's I was talking to Chauncey Billups the other day when we were talking about, because Chauncey in Portland was a huge part of bringing the higher pickup point back to the NBA. Obviously, the Celtics did it on their way to winning the championship. The Celtics and the Pacers were the two most frequent like three-quarter court pressure, high pickup point teams in the playoffs last year. And teams are doing it this year. The Raptors do it a lot. But what you can do there is you can ask another guy to bring up the ball. It's like Tyrese Halliburton, for example, to make it about the Pacers. Andrew Nembhard brings up the ball a lot, but the ball still goes back to Tyrese to initiate. And Nembhard is still not initiating a bunch. Like bring the ball up isn't as much an indicator against these types of pressure defenses as it used to be. It's just to help a guy so he doesn't have to battle a guy, poking at him the whole way up the floor. And so you don't have to have like backcourt screeners and all that kind of stuff. You can go set up your offense and just hand the ball off to somebody and start your offense at like the 15-second mark, catching it above the break rather than having a guy battle a guy all the way up the floor. So yeah, it's as you say, Scrambles, wondering what his place is next year. Jacoby, it will be interesting to see what type of usage he gets next year, but I think he has guaranteed himself a place because he's done a really, really tremendous job of being better defensively. And I'm very interested next year because Grady, I do expect him to be strong offensively, but if they want to win games and he's not bringing it on the defensive end, they want to win games. You could hit the bench very easily. And Jacoby on a team like with Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, all that kind of stuff, Emmanuel Quickly, and he hits open threes and he defends, God, that's an easy guy to play. Grady has to be more compelling defensively in the future. But yeah, that I don't know. I think like I was dreaming on star potential when Grady got drafted, but he's lagged behind defensively from where I thought it was. And the shooting is like I expected maybe like 37% from three. 35% is not terrible. And I do think he is going to become a better shooter as he ages, but the defense is lagging farther behind than I would have liked. The finishing at the rim is lagging farther behind than I would have liked from Grady. The shooting is mostly about where I expected to be, but it's harder to see star potential now, especially since like when he was so exciting at the start of the year and you got to dream on that kind of stuff, he was better defensively. Like truly he was. Truly he was. But as he kind of worked some of the weight off and he started getting pushed around more and the season caught up to him. Yeah, man, it got worse. So tough to see. I'm really excited for what happens next year with Grady and Jacoby in particular. Emmanuel, I talked about like probably enough. I just want to guide people towards Lewis's piece about him. AI Sem says, I think Grady has had harder defensive matchups than Jacoby, way harder. Like that, that's the thing is Grady's job on offense is way harder than Jacoby's. They're not even really comparable. However, Jacoby takes hard matchups on the other end, and Jacoby does a pretty good job with it, and Grady does not. And that's just what it is. It's they definitely, yeah, there's stuff there. Pedro Toad says, do you think it's more likely Darko runs like an 11 or 12 man rotation next season or runs a 10 man and only uses dudes like Ochai, Battle, Mobile when someone's injured? Yeah, that's a really good question. I think this is on the players a little bit. If guys like Ingram and Scotty actually show that they can carry bench lineups, and there's potential that those guys can, especially if they're configured properly, I think Darko would like to go to 11. Darko likes the longer rotations. He likes the high pickup point. He likes to make things difficult. He likes to play high octane. He likes guys to expend a lot of energy when they're out there, and that requires more subs. And you can run more subs if you have guys at the top end who can carry lesser players, or if you have a quality of rotation that you can sub guys in. And, there are some teams like when I was talking about it, maybe it was last week, the Knicks are a team back in the early 2020s that their bench was what won them games when they did win games. And they had a quality bench. They had a bench mob that was more compelling and won more minutes than their starters. And the Raptors, well, I don't think I see that next year. I think they could perhaps be a decent enough bench, probably not top half of the league. I'd be surprised, but they could be a decent enough bench with players like Brandon Ingram, who is supposed to be able to carry teams offensively, at least for a little bit, stabilize them, or a guy like Scotty who does the same thing on the defensive end. So, yeah, it's interesting. Next year is put up or shut up for so many people. It's for Darko, it's like, hey, can you really provide the answers to a lot of different play styles, a lot of different types of players, and getting them all to buy in under this banner of your style? And can that be efficient and good and strong? Can you maintain this defense as well while incorporating these new guys? Grady Dick has to play. Brandon Ingram has to play. And Brandon Ingram is much easier to win minutes defensively with, but it's just like a lot of guys have to be part of the rotation, and you have to be able to do it on both sides of the floor. So it's huge for Darko. And a guy like Scotty, it is like, okay, now you probably aren't getting the toughest wing matchup. Can you feast on those secondary defenders as a guy who can create and bully drive? Can your playmaking pop off once again once you have better players to pass to and the hierarchy is shifted so you can provide better looks? Are you able to keep up that intensity on defense as well? Emmanuel, quickly, can you get more three-point shots up? Can you walk the line of doing a better job of setting up actions, touching the paint, creating easier looks for your players? Can you do that? RJ Barrett, Rezrov says, what about RJ carrying a bench mob? RJ, can you be a guy who toggles down your usage next to guys like Scotty and Brandon, and you're efficient there, and then you get a little bit more of the ball when you're guiding these bench lineups? Can you create looks repeatedly? Can you punish secondary lineups, transitional lineups by getting to the rim, creating open threes for your teammates? Can you do that? Like, Grady, can you hit shots? Tough shots? Can you buckle in on defense? Jacoby, can you do what you've done, this year, but ratchet it up and do it on a good team? Like yep, it's all this stuff. And they're drafting a lottery pick. Anywhere from 1 to whatever the hell. So there's answers or there's questions and we need answers. That feels like a podcast, right? It's about an hour and 10 minutes. God, I talk. Just yapping. Nonsensical yapping. It's starting to look like the guy I really liked VJ Edgecombe. God, did I like VJ Edgecombe. Obviously Cooper Flagg is the dream. When I was going through his film, like I'll probably end up writing pieces about probably 10 prospects that, and I don't know if I'll do video essays. We'll see. Video essays take so much time. It's just, I don't know how S does it. Like just compiling all that film. Ugh. Oh, Carl, sorry, I missed your question. No episode with Josh today. It's happening later, and my bad. Pedro Toad says, Samson, why does your YouTube PFP have hair? It always surprised me every time I scroll the comments and see it. Because I had hair when I made when I made the YouTube, and I don't anymore. And I never bothered to change it. Right? It's like, who goes in and changes their YouTube profile that isn't like a YouTuber? You know what I mean? But I also think people keep bringing this up, so it's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm a fake baldy. I can't remember who said it, but they're like, when I said I had to shave my head, they're like, this is all rich coming from a head shaver. Anyway, yeah, I have to write about guys, but yeah, VJ Edgecombe I like a lot. I really like VJ Edgecombe. Really liked VJ Edgecombe. Yeah, but it is looking kind of like it probably will be a big, if I'm projecting. And Mowatch provides a lot. Like he just does a couple things really well. Derek Queen is like this. Oh God, is he very interesting. He does a lot of things. And like Derek Queen, I'm like, you imagine in a lot of just imagine Derek Queen in a lot of the plays they put Mobo in, or even like Scotty, like a lot of that catch and hold, delay action stuff. It's just like, man, he could be very dynamic in those plays, but also he just doesn't shoot threes yet. But maybe he's a guy who just like you start shooting him when you get to the NBA because you're no longer, the big star. Scramble says fears, Devin Landry says Queen's good offensively, but defense in question. Yeah. You're never going to have every question answered with a prospect unless it's like truly that level of player. Cooper seems like he answers basically every question you'd have of him. God, he's good. Yeah. Koki says, I don't think Coleman's defense is as sure of a thing as people allude to. Yeah, this is, I think he definitely has like a lot of impact defensively. God, Duke is really good at keeping him near the rim, which is Duke's job. Duke keeps him near the rim. Why? Because he has a little bigger standing reach than Victor Wembanyama, right? Because he's huge. And so you want to keep him towards the rim. And he also is really fast when he gets to start taking those big steps. And I know listeners have disagreed with me when I said that I thought he had heavy feet. Heavy feet does not mean you can't defend. Heavy feet does not mean that you can't cover ground. Like Scotty has heavy feet in my estimation and high hips. But Scotty gets into, he's an incredibly impactful defender. Coleman is an incredibly impactful defender, but I know like Raps VE is in chat right now. We disagree. And again, it's perfectly fine to disagree about basketball. It doesn't matter. But differing opinions on his foot speed, which I'm perfectly happy to be wrong about that. But when I watched, that's what I saw. So, I mean, who knows? You can still be a very good defender with heavy feet. Rezrov says Mowatch is too huge to be truly bad. Seems that way. The only worry I have with Mowatch, literally the only worry, because I think he's really great at tracking the ball in air, going to catch lobs. I think he'll become a good screen setter. The only thing is just like footwork in the pick and roll. So we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, an hour and 15, just yapping. Carl Ribeiro says, I think Queen's defense isn't bad when he puts in the effort. Unfortunately, he's not always willing to defend. Yeah, I mean, he's asked to do a lot offensively. He is a college star. He's doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Sim Bolar was huge too. Yeah. YA says CMB. We will be talking CMB. All the guys, all the players that you guys ask about, we still got like 2 months until the draft, right? They will be talked about. AI Sem says Edie worked out. Edie had better feet than people thought. If people remember my coverage, everyone was worried about his feet. I was like, I actually think Edie's feet are better than people think. And they did end up testing very well relative to his size in the draft, whatever the hell they do. Yeah. Willingness is a huge factor indeed. Now, I'm just reading the chat and reacting to things. This is not good podcasting. Thank you to everybody for listening. Like the video before we get out of here. There's a whole bunch of people in here. Thank you for tuning in. I love you lots. I'm going to go swim. I'm going to get jacked. I'm going to have a hell of a summer. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Whether they got into this in the morning or at night. Have a blessed day and goodbye.